Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for Fulbrighters Speak: How a Year Abroad Changed Their Lives. I'm so pleased to be part of presenting this program as part of the International Relations Council tonight, and I appreciate everyone's participation and attendance in tonight's program. Since 1946, the Fulbright Program has served as the United States' largest education exchange program. The Fulbright Program has a goal of improving intercultural relations, cultural diplomacy, and intercultural competence through the exchange of persons, knowledge, and skills. What role does the Fulbright play in our rapidly changing world? How has the program evolved through the years? Tonight, the International Relations Council is pleased to welcome 4 former Fulbrighters to share their experiences and provide recommendations for those who may be interested in participating in the program themselves. Again, my name is Evan Verplu. I serve as the program manager for the IRC. The International Relations Council strengthens Kansas City's global perspective by maintaining an active dialogue around world events, global issues, and their impact in our community. As a nonpartisan educational nonprofit organization, the IRC values informed civil discourse, accessibility, and substance as we work to sharpen our community's 21st century global acumen. Whether you're joining us live tonight or viewing the recording later, we invite you to learn more about the IRC, including our other upcoming events and how to join the IRC as a member on our website at irckc.org. Throughout the program, we invite you to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions or make any comments for our moderator, for our panelists. And if you have a question for a specific panelist, I just invite you to include their name in your question so we know where to address it to. This program will be recorded and will be made available on our YouTube page tomorrow if you'd like to revisit it or share it with someone who you feel might be interested in it. Now we are going to go ahead and show a short video which will explain just a little bit more about the Fulbright program and get us started for this evening.
The year was 1925. After graduating from college, James William Fulbright left his home in Arkansas to embark on a journey across the Atlantic. He studied at Oxford University, traveled throughout Europe, and learned about the lives and concerns of the people he met along the way. But the results of this transformational overseas experience would not fully emerge for another 20 years. After Fulbright returned to the United States, he attended law school, served as a university president, and began a career in public service. In 1945, as the junior senator from Arkansas, he introduced legislation to use funds from surplus war materials for a new international educational exchange program. In 1946, President Harry Truman signed legislation to establish the Fulbright Program, an international scholarship with an ambitious goal to increase mutual understanding and support friendly and peaceful relations between the people of the United States and the people of other countries. Today, through an annual appropriation from the U.S. Congress, the U.S. Department of State sponsors Fulbright Program exchanges with more than 155 countries around the world. The State Department manages the overall program, sets priorities, allocates resources, and funds the Fulbright Program's day-to-day administration by non-governmental organizations such as IIE and CIES. In each country, the State Department's U.S. Embassy staff works with partner governments to provide in-country oversight for the Fulbright Program. In some countries, the two governments have established independent binational Fulbright commissions to carry out the program. Finally, the presidentially appointed Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board establishes policies and procedures and selects participants for the Fulbright Program. Worldwide, most of the funding for the Fulbright Program comes from the U.S. government, while many foreign governments contribute substantially to the program as well. Higher education institutions, both in the U.S. and abroad, also play an important role, sharing costs and serving as centers of academic and professional development for Fulbrighters. Private organizations and individual donors provide additional funding and in-kind support. Through this cooperation among governments, academia, the private sector, and civil society, the Fulbright Program increases international understanding and responds to critical global issues. Fulbrighters the world over are engaged in projects on environmental issues, food security, public health, education, and other challenges that require innovation, creativity, and knowledge that transcends borders. So what does it mean to be a Fulbrighter? Fulbrighters are current and future leaders who are ready to share their knowledge and culture. who are open to new ideas and who are committed to international engagement. Fulbright alumni have gone on to become Nobel Prize winners, heads of state, ambassadors, leaders in scientific research and innovation, educators, artists, business professionals, and civic leaders. Above all, Fulbrighters exemplify the power of international academic exchange to transform lives, bridge geographic and cultural boundaries, and promote a more peaceful and prosperous world.
Wonderful. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to Z Hall. Z serves as the president of the Kansas City chapter of the Fulbright Association, and she's going to speak a little bit more about the Fulbright program here on a local level. Thank you so much, Z.
Thank you, Evan, and thank you for this invitation to talk with you tonight by IRCKC. And as Evan mentioned, my name is Z Hall, president of the Kansas City chapter of the Fulbright Association. And as some of you may know, the Fulbright Association is a U.S. membership organization of alumni and supporters committed to fostering international awareness and understanding, advocating for increased worldwide support of Fulbright exchanges, and enriching the Fulbright experience, as well as facilitating long-time interactions among alumni participants in our local communities. Established by the Fulbright alumni in 1977, the Fulbright Association has more than 140,000 individual members and approximately 174 colleges, universities, and international organizations that participate as institutional members. There are 56 affiliate chapters in 40 states, the District of Columbia, and the nationwide chapter that focuses on serving the needs of persons with disabilities. Chapters are organized and operated by alumni volunteers serving Fulbright applicants and grantees, visiting Fulbrighters from around the globe, returning U.S. Fulbrighters, and our local communities through events and programs that build international perspective and understanding. The Kansas City chapter of the Fulbright Association is a founding chapter that serves both Kansas and Missouri. Chartered on September 9th, 2021, we have begun to lay a firm foundation on which we strive to build a vibrant community of Fulbright alumni and friends, expand our list of institutional members, and connect and collaborate with international organizations such as our host tonight, IRCKC. All of us moving together in a constellation of internationally minded individuals and institutions whose shared mission is international knowledge, global understanding, and peace as a return on our investment in the same. If you are a Fulbright alum, a friend of Fulbright, an educational or international institution in Kansas or Missouri, we invite you to come build with us and to enhance and extend the Fulbright experience. I was hoping to place some information in the chat or the Q&A so that you can make contact with us and connect. The Kansas City chapter thanks IRCKC for this wonderful opportunity to share information about our chapter with you. And we look forward to international education information and the stories we are about to hear from tonight's distinguished panel. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Z. I really appreciate that. I am now going to pass things over to our moderator for this evening. Lee Rivers is a global education specialist with over a decade of experience managing outreach and recruitment strategies for educational and cultural exchange programs. As a natural connector and skilled communicator, Lee has experience collaborating with sponsors, administrators, faculty, and other key stakeholders in education and government to create plans that support internalization. Mr. Rivers received a master's in higher education administration from the University of Central Missouri and a bachelor's in kinesiology from Kansas State University. In 2004, Lee received the Gilman Scholarship to study at the University of Canberra, Australia, and also participated in the Fulbright Hayes Group project abroad in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. As an advocate for educational opportunities abroad, Lee is passionate about increasing access for underrepresented populations. Since 2008, Lee has been working at the Institute of International Education, promoting international exchange through programs such as Gilman, Boren Awards, and the Fulbright Program. Lee currently services as an outreach and recruitment specialist for the Fulbright U.S. student program. Lee, thank you so much for being here this evening, and please take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Evan. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight with you all, and appreciate the opportunity to get to know these other Fulbrighters that are on the panel. And I look forward to you all getting to know them as well. Let me take a little bit of time now to introduce the panelists. From there, I'm going to share a little bit of basic information about the Fulbright U.S. student program and the Fulbright program sort of in general. I won't go into great detail because you already saw the video, so I'll save those 27 slides for another time. But let me introduce you to some of the names, some of the voices and faces that you're going to be hearing from later. The first is Charlie Bankert. He is an Associate Vice Provost for International Affairs at the University of Kansas, where he serves as KU's Senior International Affairs Officer. He also oversees the operation of the Applied English Center, international short programs, international support services, international admissions, and study abroad and global engagement. Charlie was just saying earlier that he was part of the International Education Administrators Program, as well as part of the specialist roster for Fulbright. Our second speaker is going to be Tamara Falkoff. She is an Associate Dean at the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and a professor in the Department of Film and Media Studies at the University of Kansas as well. She was awarded a Docking Young Fellow Faculty Fellowship. This is a mid-career scholars award at KU, and serves as the chair of film and media studies from 2009 to 2015. Dr. Falkoff has previously served as a visiting professor at the University of Medellin in Colombia in 2010 and 2016. And she mentioned that she's also on the specialist roster for Fulbright. The third speaker is going to be Noelle Brooks. Noelle graduated from the University of Central Missouri, Go Mules, Go Jennies, with a double major in international studies and Spanish, before heading to Mexico as a Fulbright English Teaching Assistant, ETA. We'll be throwing that term around a little bit later on. She has since moved to other cities in Mexico and is working as a program director at an educational organization that's based in the United States called Planting Seeds. Thank you for being here, Noelle. And finally, you're going to hear from Dr. Michael Mccarran. Michael is an associate professor in political science at the University of Central Missouri. His research focuses on politics in authoritarian regimes and civil military relations, with a regional focus on the Middle East. Dr. Mccarran worked in Jordan for over 2 years as a research fellow for both Fulbright and the American Center of Oriental Research. So I'm really excited for you all to hear from our speakers in a little bit. But before we do that, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the Fulbright program, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page, and we can kind of work through some of those basic questions that we typically receive in a presentation. As I'm sure many of you, your interest is not necessarily on this background information, but you're more interested in hearing about our distinguished panelists and their experiences, be it the genesis of their interest in the Fulbright program, the process of applying, the challenges they may have had to overcome, the experiences that they actually had when they were in country as Fulbrighters, what that day-to-day life looks like for them. I assume it's different every day, but there may be some commonalities, and they can talk about those. And then the impact of the program. What has Fulbright meant to them personally, professionally, and academically? But before we do that, let me cover a few basics about the program. As you heard in the video, this is a program that's sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. The program has a very long history. We're in our 76th year. And as you heard in the video, we've had a lot of success. We've had Fulbrighters go on to become heads of state, heads of government, groundbreaking scientists, world-renowned artists. But how I look at Fulbrighters is that they are individuals that chose to pursue an opportunity abroad where they were connecting with the community of the host country, working on a project that is near and dear to their heart, but has significance for their host communities as well. And they returned home with that knowledge that was gained, those relationships that were built to impact their current communities, whether that's in Lawrence at the University of Kansas, in Warrensburg at the University of Central Missouri, or beyond. So these are impact players. These are individuals that truly are making a positive impact in our society. By the numbers, so Fulbright's a very large, complex, and dynamic program. And there's a lot of different moving parts. Each year we have over 8,000 participants in the Fulbright program. As you can see here on the chart, we have opportunities that send US scholars, so those that have a PhD or many years of experience in a given field abroad, to conduct research, to teach, or do a combination of the two. We also have foreign scholars that are coming here to the United States to teach, conduct research, or a combination of those two as well. And then on the flip side of that, we've got students, hopefully like yourselves, US students that are going abroad to conduct research, to earn master's degrees abroad, to study at other universities, and to participate in English teaching assistantships. And then there are foreign scholars that are coming here to earn their master's degrees and PhDs. So it's a massive program. There's a lot of moving parts. On the slide, we outlined that we have over 900 US scholars and administrators participating in the program, 900 visiting scholars, 2,200 US students that are going abroad, and that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight. 4,000 rather, foreign students that are coming here to the United States to earn those master's degrees or PhDs. And then we have 400 plus what we call FLTAs, Fulbright Language Teaching Assistants, that are on your university campuses, helping students learn about their host country or their home country, as well as learn languages, critical language, as well as other languages. So big picture, Fulbright's a massive community. We have over 400,000 program alumni since the inception of the program, and that number continues to grow every single year. Since its inception, Fulbright has had a focus on diversity and inclusion. I won't spend a lot of time here, but I want you guys to know that this is a program that seeks to make sure we have representation from all geographic locations, all institutional types, as well as all types of individuals. We understand that there's not one type of American, nor is there one type of American experience. And Fulbright is a way that we're able to show the variety, the diversity of the United States in an international context. And it's been that way since the very beginning. I'm not going to really cover a lot of this slide, but I want you to just kind of peek and see the diversity of institutions that are represented here on this chart. And this is back in 1946, the original Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board. We've got HBCUs represented. There's a Catholic university, large Research One institutions, as well as other types of institutions. And this slide also lets you see the connection that Fulbright and the US government has with the company that administers the program, IIE. One of our founding members, sons of the founding members, was a board member. Okay, so just basic eligibility for the Fulbright US student program. This is an opportunity that is available to those that have US citizenship by the application deadline, because this is a taxpayer dollar funded program. Second is that you must have a bachelor's degree or equivalent by the start of the award. And you can't have a PhD at the time of application. Again, this is for the Fulbright US student program. So anytime between those two life events, you are eligible to apply for the Fulbright student program, regardless of whether you're enrolled in an institute of higher education or not. So this is a great opportunity for those that are, have graduated with a bachelor's degree and haven't started a master's. This is a great opportunity for those that are in a master's program, if they're able to coordinate that. Great opportunity for those that have a master's but haven't started a PhD, and for those that are looking at doing dissertation research and haven't obtained that degree yet. So there is no age requirement, there is no age limit. There's our Fulbrighters for all fields of studies, all disciplines, you name it. And then the last thing that I'd like to point out here is that there are two different types of awards, two different grant activities that one can participate in through the Fulbright US Student Program. And we have sort of two different buckets. The first are what we call study research awards. This is where you could be conducting academic independent research, advanced research. You may be doing graduate degree enrollment abroad, or you may be doing a project that's focused on the creative and performing arts. That's the first category. And then the second category are for those that are looking at doing English teaching assistantships, where you're helping non-native English speakers learn the language, as well as learn more about the US society from your perspective, from your slice of America. So those are the two types of awards. You're only able to apply or submit one application per application cycle. So you're choosing one of those types of awards to apply for. Now, I've said a lot. I don't want to focus on the nuts and bolts. We're going to have a lot of opportunities for you to get that information by going to our website and plugging into one of our webinars. I know we have one tomorrow that focuses on study research opportunities. Hope you can join us. And we've got another 35 that are going to be taking place throughout the application cycle. So now I'd like to jump into getting to know our panelists a bit better and hearing about their experience as Fulbrighters. And as Evan pointed out earlier, if you guys have questions along the way, please feel free to submit those in the Q&A box. What I recommend doing, if you have a person in mind that you want to send the question to, be sure to add their name to the question before you submit it. So with that, I'd like to just start off and just hear from the group how you found out about the Fulbright program. What was sort of the genesis of your interest in this opportunity? And I'd like to kick things off with Tamara, hearing from you about sort of the genesis of your interest in applying for Fulbright. And from there, we'll hand it over to Noelle, and then we'll figure out the rest from there.
Thank you so much, Lee, and thanks for the backstory on the history of Fulbright. And I'm hoping that folks in the audience are going to be really motivated to consider applying themselves. My story is one of a child of immigrants. My family immigrated from Buenos Aires, Argentina in the early 60s. They came to the US. I was born here in Chicago, and my first language was Spanish, but I really didn't have a lot of opportunity to get to know my family there. Argentina is far away. They say there's some funny phrases in Spanish about how they locate where it is, but let's just say it's far from the US. And I thought to myself after college, when I was studying another part of the world but didn't know the language, that actually would make sense to really learn Spanish and get to know my family. So in learning in graduate school about how to go abroad and do research, I learned about Fulbright. So it's really UC San Diego. I have to give them credit. They mentored students and said, go ahead and apply. And luckily, my project on Argentine cinema, which is what my book is on, was the basis of my dissertation. And I'll just quickly tell you that it was a wonderful experience because as I said, I'm from California now, and even though I'm here in Kansas, but going down there and talking to filmmakers about my interest in Argentine cinema was kind of shocking for them as directors. And I got the most famous directors you can imagine. I was so lucky that I was able to do this. And I can tell people a little bit later how I did this. But anyhow, what they couldn't believe is that I was from California. I must be from Hollywood. And how am I here in Argentina interviewing them? And so I think that it really was a wonderful opportunity to connect with people. And even though I had a background with a culture, it was still a special thing to come as a Fulbrighter from the US and interview people and honor their culture. So I'll just stop there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Noelle, can you kind of talk about how you found out about Fulbright? What was your interest in pursuing the ETA in Mexico?
Definitely. Thank you all. So during my time in university, I was very interested in study abroad. I studied abroad about 5 times actually in university, mostly to improve my Spanish. Since I was a little kid, I was really interested in the language. My mom also studied Spanish, so that definitely helped. So during my time in university, I had studied abroad a lot. I noticed how much that helped my development in the language, and just being able to learn about other cultures and meet other people. So I began to research more ways to, maybe spend more time abroad after graduating. And luckily, the University of Central Missouri was very supportive with that, especially my former professor, Mike Mccarran. He definitely helped a lot with that, with guidance, with just connecting students to programs like Fulbright, Peace Corps, all of those programs. So thanks to my professors, honestly, they really motivated me and kind of pushed me to apply, because I was almost at the point of not wanting to apply, thinking, oh, there's no way that I would ever get this. So why would I do it? Why would I take the time and the energy to do this? But luckily, thanks to my professors, they really pushed me into doing it. And I always had, this passion for education, seeing as it's one of the most powerful things in the world that can really help us move forward as a society. So with the background in Spanish and education, that's what kind of drew me to Mexico.
That's fantastic. So 5 study abroad opportunities. We're going to have to unpack that another time, but that's outstanding. And something that I pulled away from what you said, Noelle, is that you worked with your advisors, your professors there on campus. And I think that's critical to all the students that are out there in this process. Through Fulbright, we have what we call Fulbright Program advisors. They are individuals that have been appointed by their institution to be the point of contact for everything Fulbright, Fulbright student program, that is. So they are helping with recruitment and outreach on their campus, as well as advising students through the application process. And I know Mike, this is a good lead-in actually. Michael serves as one of those Fulbright program advisors. So Michael, same question. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the genesis of your interest in the Fulbright program and kind of where you were at in the earlier days with the Fulbright?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lee. I think when I hear about both Tamara and Noelle talking about their experiences, I think I was a little bit of a harder sell, to be honest. I didn't study abroad when I was an undergrad. Honestly, when I got to graduate school, I was very interested in studying the Middle East. But there was something about just not wanting to go somewhere else that I think was also just in the back of my mind. And one day my advisor sat me down and said, look, Mike, no one's going to take you seriously unless you go abroad and actually, learn the sort of the topics that you study firsthand. So he was instrumental in first getting me abroad, but as my work developed, it was that mentor that really what guided me to apply for Fulbright and a number of other opportunities. And I think back at the first year grad student in me, if I didn't have that mentor, where would I have been? Because I think everyone on this panel will just talk about what a life-changing experience this is. And at UCM, Lee mentioned that I'm the Fulbright program advisor. I now have the privilege really to give students that same opportunity. So a little bit of coming full circle, I would say.
I love that. I love that. I love the full circle story. I know that I participated in the Fulbright program in 2005, and 3 years later was hired at IIE to be able to work on these programs. So it really is rewarding. So last but surely not least, Charlie, I'd like to hear from you about how you found out about the Fulbright program, why you were interested in pursuing it. And I know the opportunity that you participated in as an administrator is a little bit different. So maybe you can talk briefly about that, as there may be some administrators out there in the audience.
Yeah, and actually, I was looking at the names. There are some administrators out there in the audience. That's a good cue. To finish that full circle, I'm actually kind of I'm the reverse of Mike Mccarran and Noelle's story here, where I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and I went into the U.S. Peace Corps. I went into like Noelle, I went and taught English as a second language in Hungary. I came back to graduate school and did Hungarian studies, and that led into a career in international higher education. And One of my first jobs in international education was to be an advisor for the U.S. Student Outbound Fulbright Program, as well as the Fulbright Hayes Doctoral Dissertation Research Abroad Program and the Faculty Fulbright Hayes Research Abroad Program. And I got to say, working with students and helping them craft a narrative that gave voice to their passion and their interests and a connection between their academic preparation and the world out there, it inspired me. And I tell you, there would just be these joyful yells in my office in the springtime when notifications would come out and my heroes would get good news that their grant applications had been approved. I've had lots of opportunities. I served on the National Review Committee for the German ETAs, as well as Germany and France, and got a chance to see how that process was working out on a national level when students would apply and then their applications would get considered. But it was that connection to students and the inspiring stories, getting the postcards from a field, the connection back to me from my Fulbright day or my Peace Corps days that inspired me actually to go in and put in an application to be a Fulbrighter through the International Education Administrators Program in South Korea. And for me, that was an opportunity to be a part of the Fulbright program. Lee, you mentioned the binational commissions in that PowerPoint or that movie. And I was able to connect with the Binational Commission in Seoul, South Korea, and get an understanding of the support that they provide to students. Went out to the field and connected with US ETAs, English teaching assistants in the field in South Korea, and the connection that they had to communities. It further cemented my passion for the Fulbright program and the vision that Senator Fulbright had for bringing people together through interpersonal dialogue and longer term engagement.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Charlie. So I'm going to work out how I want to frame this question by leading and saying, you kind of heard how people heard about the Fulbright program, but I want to key in on something is that before these panelists ever put pen to paper or fingers to the keyboard, however they did it, to craft a statement of grant purpose or a personal statement, which is included in all of these award types, they spent some time reflecting on who they were, what they wanted to accomplish, so they could have a clear picture of how Fulbright would fit into their longer term goals. So regardless of where you're at right now, I want to encourage all of you guys to, try to earn daily small wins, because I think the having Fulbright in front of you, it seems like such a big thing to work towards, but it was a process for everyone that's sitting on this panel, and they just accrued wins on a daily basis, and that eventually led to, I guess, the big win that was the Fulbright grant. So maybe some ideas of some of the things that you can be doing along the way are bookmark the Fulbright website, right? That way you're going to be referring to it often. Get in contact with your Fulbright program advisor. We talked about that, or a mentor just to express interest so you can have a strong support team around you. Attend one of our upcoming webinars or listening to a recorded webinar. Those are just some things that you can do to get started. And so I think what I'd like the panelists to talk about is, what were some of the resources that you utilized or that you tapped into as you were crafting your application? Who were some of the people that maybe you had review your application and give you constructive feedback? And was that process worth it? Not just because you got the award, but what did you learn about yourself by going through that process? So it's not one question, it's kind of a lot jumbled together. But Tamara, can you be the first to take a stab at it?
Yes, absolutely. And it's really fun to kind of go back. It's like a walk down memory lane to kind of think through the process. And I'll just say two things to your point, which I think is a really good one. The first one is that I actually was lucky to connect with a former Fulbrighter to Argentina. And I don't remember how that happened. It must have been somebody at my university that made that connection for me. And that was very informative. I believe she helped me by even allowing me to read her statement of purpose just to get a sense of what she did. So that was one thing I would suggest if you're not sure about this process. And the second one, which I think may be even more important, but maybe Lee, you can speak to this, is that if you can figure out where you want to go and what you want to do, and you have these people around you that will mentor you on it, is have the mentors help you find a contact in that country, because that person will really help you with a letter of invitation and support. And I truly think that if you don't have that strong connection, it'll be harder. It'll be more competitive for you to get this grant. So those are two things I would suggest.
Those are excellent suggestions. Those are really good suggestions. And we do have a few resources that I'll pull up our website and I'll throw them in the chat as our other panelists are answering this question. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Michael, could you go next and maybe share a little bit? And I know your perspective is going to be interesting because you're working as a Fulbright Program advisor. So I'll have you go next, and then Noelle will follow you, and we'll again wrap up with Charlie.
Sure. I think when I was going through the process, I was very lucky to be at a university that had a pretty, I would say, robust Fulbright committee that had a lot of faculty mentor support for students. And I remember having an extra set of eyes on your application really helps. I can, if anyone wants to follow up on the details after, I'd be happy to share. But looking back, I made some really awful mistakes in my initial drafts that, looking back, I can't believe I made. That, you know, my mentors very delicately said, you cannot say this. And so it was the kind of thing where just no matter who you are and what grant you're applying for, having that extra set of eyes to help you not only look for mistakes like I made, but also to really distill out what is the story that you were trying to tell. These application materials really are a story about you. And sometimes when it's hard to tell that story when if we're not sort of from the outside looking in. And I think that extra pair of eyes is oftentimes really helpful in that regard. If you don't have a Fulbright committee on your campus, certainly just reaching out to a trusted faculty member or mentor is what I would recommend. 100%. They will be able to help guide you through this process in a way that will certainly be invaluable.
Noelle, please feel free to jump in. Sorry.
Perfect, no problem. So kind of going off of what Mike said, I definitely think, you know, outlining what your goals and intentions are, figuring out which route you would like to take within Fulbright. For me, it was very clear that I wanted to do the ETA route rather than the research route. But even figuring out if that's right for you, because you are going to be spending 9 months teaching English as a foreign language. So figuring out if that's even the right area for you, if you feel comfortable doing that. In my case, I was able to volunteer with different organizations beforehand, teaching English as a foreign language or supporting people with their second language, and realized that it is something that I'm passionate about, that I wanted to go forward with. Again, my professors helped me more than anybody. I think I was in their offices every single week asking for advice, asking, okay, should I go to this country or this country? Where do I go? What do I do? So just having that support system, whether they're your professors, people who have done Fulbright before or not, but definitely having that support system. Since Mexico required advanced Spanish, I was always talking to my Spanish professors about, well, you know, can you help me prepare for the interview? Can we do a mock interview? How do I say this? How can I go about this? So just really identifying your goals, and of course your support group, again, whether it be your professors, maybe if you can connect with somebody, a previous Fulbrighter or something like that.
And if I might be able to jump in just to share this briefly, the Fulbright chapter associations, they are very helpful in that sense too. They are an extension of the resources from the different universities in our region. So that because a lot of our members have done Fulbrights in many, many different parts of the world. and have sometimes gone to different parts of the world several times, and have connections with NGOs, universities, faculty members in those countries. And many of them also have language skills so that they can serve as a language partner and just be an extension of the university system to have the kind of resources that would help their applications to be a lot stronger.
I love this dialogue, and I love the tips that are being shared right now. I always tell students, I tell everyone that you can't be afraid to cast your net as wide as possible when it comes to making connections. You know, you gotta be comfortable or become comfortable talking to strangers, because as adults, we call that networking, right? So you never know where those conversations will lead you and what connections, what doors of opportunity they can open for you. So Charlie, let me turn it over to you. Same question. And I just want to remind everyone that if you have questions, please feel free to submit those.
Yeah, so I think what my colleagues have said, I would agree with wholeheartedly. You know, I do think reaching out is one thing to have an idea and to connect with your advisors, to kind of map things out and begin to network on your own campus and with your own community. But to reach out to potential hosting institutions abroad to assess the feasibility of your project ideas, to make those connections. Even for me, I reached out to colleagues in South Korea to ask if this would be relevant and what they thought I could do through making those kinds of institution-to-institution connections, and how it might help me become a better connector in terms of strategic collaborations with universities. And I was able to put that into my application and get that support from colleagues abroad that I think helps create a compelling narrative. The other thing that I would add to that is, you know, the Fulbright application itself is a really unique thing. And there's a narrative CV that you have to do as part of that process. And they're not looking for a bulleted list of accomplishments and degrees. They're looking for a narrative about what makes you tick and your kind of origin story and what got you up to that point of putting in for an application, because they're looking for a connection, continuity, passion, drive, and a sense that you are actually prepared for and aware of what you're getting yourself into by going through this process. And when those things align, it's magical. And having served on the national committee, I can tell you that those deep, rich, personal, unique stories of an individual connecting with the world and a rationale, a passion, and a drive to participate in this program, it stays with you. And when you're looking at a bunch of applications, those stories have deep meaning and help you make yourself known. So just a little bit of a word there. And that's a good thing to share with people and say, this is kind of my narrative CV. Does it strike you as interesting? Like, what pieces of this did you find engaging, and how might I develop that further?
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Charlie. I just want to explain the reason why we're spending a little bit of more time here on sort of the beginning of this process and applying is because many of you probably haven't applied yet. So I think these tips, this insight that are being provided are really good takeaways, and you should run with the advice that's being shared. But now I'd like to transition and talk a little bit about more about like what that in-country experience looked like for each of you. What did you do? Briefly, what did you do? What were maybe one or the two top lessons learned? And what do you carry with you still today? Maybe even years removed from your Fulbright experience. So let's kick things off with Noelle. And then from there, we'll jump over to Charlie and we'll figure the other two out after that. So Noelle, the floor is yours.
Perfect, thank you. So I was placed in Mexico, of course, teaching English. And I was rather terrified at the beginning because I thought, oh, well, Mexico is a huge country. There are a lot of big cities. Surely I'm going to be put into a city with other Fulbrighters, but that was not the case at all. I was put into a very rural, eastern, smaller city in Mexico, which ended up being the best thing that could have possibly happened to me. So I was placed in this town. I had never heard of it before, very different from other parts of Mexico or the typical Mexico that people think of. The town was called Campeche, and I was teaching at the autonomous university there. So I did a lot of conversation clubs. We did cultural clubs. I also did some tutoring on the side. I was even able to assist some students that were interested in studying abroad or even pursuing a Fulbright scholarship in the future. So that was something that was incredibly rewarding. And also just being able to have those conversation clubs and talk about topics that maybe students don't always get a chance to talk about in the university setting in a more conservative part of Mexico. So that was something that was really rewarding, really great to see. Something that stuck with me, I'm actually still in Mexico. I never moved back to the United States. So maybe that's a thing that stuck with me, Mexican culture, everything in general. But honestly, just to see how friendly and opening the people are here. And I think that's something that is, sometimes we don't really see that in the United States. We don't think, of Latin America being like that. We see the ugly side rather than the beautiful, welcoming, warm side of it. So that's something that has stuck with me, and is also, as a shyer person, has helped me, develop personally as well. And then I forgot what the last part was. Lee, what was the last question?
Just lessons learned. What are you still using, maybe in an academic or professional sense today, that you learned through your Fulbright experience?
Of course. Well, you're going to teach your native language of English, and then you realize that it's not that easy to teach your own language. No matter how much grammar you have, teaching is so much more than just knowing the content. I worked alongside a fantastic teacher at a different university who really helped me and motivated me to find different approaches to educating and supporting students, making me realize that all students are different, they learn differently, and as teachers, it's our job, it's our responsibility to find the best way to support our students. And that's something that I've taken into my current role as a program director, helping tutors at this organization find the best way to serve their students.
I love that. And just the distinction that I'd like to make specifically about the English Teaching Assistantship Program through the Fulbright Student Program, is that we're not looking for the next wave of English teachers or TESOL teachers here in America or in Mexico, in Noelle's case. We're looking for individuals that have a sincere desire to be that cultural ambassador at this stage of their life, and feel that they're able to be that through the teaching experience. And as Noelle said, you're not the full-on professor in that classroom, you're an assistant teacher. And so you're really adding sort of that American perspective to the learning environment. I believe I said Charlie was going to be next. I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. Do you need me to repeat the question, Charlie, or are you good to run with it?
I think I'm good to run with it. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So I was in Seoul, South Korea, and what I would say in terms of my experience is there was the project that I was on, and largely focused on higher education administration and different systems, and kind of a comparative look at how do South Korean institutions of higher education align and compare with US institutions of higher education, and where are the points of connection and what have you. And certainly that was important, and I got a lot out of that. And kind of the awareness and the decentering of my own experience related to higher education, which is my area of research. The decentering from that U.S. focus is something that I've held on to, and it helped me realize that everything is relative, right? And that there isn't any particular universal construct that applies to higher education administration, and the culture is deeply imbued in the organizations that we are a part of. What I will say, however, in terms of kind of the experience and main lessons learned, is every time I connected with somebody and an opportunity became available, I pursued it. It's like, I didn't care if I was uncomfortable, and I was uncomfortable a lot, but like I connected with this ceramicist, and she said, would you like to come over to my university and learn some Korean traditional ceramic techniques? I don't know anything about ceramics. And I was like, yes, I would love to. And that connection connected me with a whole class of students. I ended up extending my Fulbright and staying for an additional month and taking the ceramics class from this faculty member, and really getting into that institution, and making connections that were outside of the primary purpose that I was there for. I will also say that putting yourself out there, taking that risk to engage and follow up and take someone up on an offer can lead to lifelong professional partnerships. And those partnerships, you never know when they're going to connect, but 10, 15 years down the line, I'm still connecting in new ways with people that I met during my time as a Fulbrighter. And as their careers progress and shift and change and priorities shift, and mine have, we found new ways to stay connected and aligned and to support our passion. So those connections are really, truly lifelong.
Thank you so much, Charlie. There's so many things that I want to key in on what you said, but I think what I want to encourage those that are in the audience is that you don't have to be abroad to take calculated risks. You don't have to be abroad to be willing to step outside of your comfort zone. And in fact, by doing that on a regular basis, you're going to grow in confidence, and you'll be in better positioned to be a Fulbrighter, because while you're abroad and you're not in systems that you're as used to or comfortable with, you're going to be, you're going to have to figure things out. So I think it's good to build that skill and that muscle now before you ever even go abroad. Tamara, can you talk a little bit about what you did as a Fulbrighter, lessons learned, maybe what it looked like on a day-to-day basis there, and then how Fulbright impacts the work that you do today?
Sure, thank you. Well, so I'll just say a couple things. One is that I had said earlier that I really didn't know Argentina well. It was so far away, but I will say that I did get to go with my family a few times growing up. But what I knew about the country was the inside of my grandma's apartment. So I would visit, but I wouldn't be a tourist. I was going to see family, and that's all that I saw. And so one thing that was truly remarkable about being a Fulbright scholar to Argentina is that I had the opportunity to connect culturally with other Argentines, and as I said, get to know my family, but I also had this separate connection away from my family, which was to connect with this cohort of other Fulbrighters that I saw on a regular basis. And what made it very special is that the head of the Fulbright Commission in Buenos Aires, Norma Gonzalez, I'm going to do a shout out to Norma, is that she wanted our cohort to actually explore the country of Argentina. And somehow through her magic, all of us based in Buenos Aires got to travel together to explore the north of Argentina. And these are the provinces of Salta and Jujuy. Now, again, I saw my grandma's apartment in Buenos Aires, and I knew it was a city of 11 million people, and I got to know that city. But never in a million years would I have expected to get to know the provincial side of the country, which is very different from the city. And in fact, there's some tension between what they call the head of Goliath, where 30% of the population is in the city. So what I would say about Fulbright is you would not expect that there would be so much opportunity. I mean, Charlie learned how to do ceramics. I got to visit and meet people in these cities that talked about agriculture in the most compelling ways you can imagine. One guy said, "Oh, you're a film person. Why don't you guys make programs about tools and agricultural production to help us here in rural Argentina?" And I thought, he's brilliant. Why don't we do this? not knowing that I'd end up being in an Aggie state later on in my career, but it really just opened my eyes. And so I would say that that was something that I definitely carry with me, is to get these different perspectives and to realize that countries are not homogenous. When we say we're going to Mexico, like Noelle said, well, she went to a very different town than another metropolis like Mexico City. And so we have to have a more nuanced idea about these countries that we get to spend time in and share that with people. And then the last thing I'll say is, what do I carry with me? Well, it's sort of what Charlie was saying about different cultural viewpoints on life. What I learned there is, in Argentina, social relations come before work. And in this country, it's the reverse. And I really cherish that time when people would just call me every day. Like, here you can go a few days and nobody calls you because, well, we don't use the phone much, we text. But point is, we're so focused on work in this country, and it really gave me a very different outlook, which I try to remember and I cherish.
That was fantastic, and it really keyed in on the heart of this program, which is fostering mutual understanding, building those relationships. So Mike, if you could wrap up, same question. It looks like we're down to the last 5 minutes. We'll hear from you, and then pause and see if there are any questions from the audience, and then I'll provide a few closing remarks. So Mike, let me turn it over to you.
Excellent, thank you so much. And I think I want to echo a lot of what my colleagues have said. I think we really see some themes emerging from the various experiences that we have. Maybe to Charlie's points, I too, when I think back on my Fulbright experience, I don't really think about the project I was there to do. I did some interviews for, in parliamentary politics, I did some archival work, but when I think about what really impacted me, I also had an opportunity to do some volunteer work. And it was really an opportunity that fell into my lap. Wasn't looking for it or anything like that, but ended up working in a school that taught English to a number of Jordan's underserved communities. And when I think back on Fulbright and what impacted me, it's those experiences, right? It's not sort of the digging through the stuffy archives or anything like that. And to the point that I think a number of my colleagues have said, I think it really hits on the importance of putting yourself out there and being open to opportunities and realizing that this is the chance to not just go and work on your project, which is important, yes, but to really understand and immerse yourself in another culture and in another society. So, what I take away from the experience is very much, it's okay to try new things. It's okay to put yourself out there. It's okay to do these things, because you never know what kind of great opportunities will come from that. What I take with me, I think about how when I was with Fulbright, when things were going great, it was wonderful. I mean, culture shock was real. It wasn't something I was expecting, but absolutely it was. But I think about those communities that I met while abroad that really helped me through the entire experience. And for me, as someone who studies the Middle East, it's night and day sort of what you experience on the ground versus what the perception is here. So really what I take with me and what motivates me is that I make my role as a professor of political science, I really want to really challenge stereotypes and perceptions about this region. I think that if there's a theme that runs throughout all of my work, it's that I'm trying to challenge this sort of conventional notion that a lot of folks have about the Middle East. And I take that from Fulbright. So certainly it's something that's core, I think, to the Fulbright mission. And I like to think that I'm putting that into practice today.
Yeah, you 100% are, Mike. So thank you so much for sharing as well. Okay, it looks like one question just popped up here. Let me see if I can pull this up. Oh, Joy Stevenson, yes, a mentor of mine, a good friend. Thank you so much for being here, Joy. Do we have any questions from audience members to any of our panelists, or just general questions about the Fulbright program before I wrap a bow on this, or I guess before we wrap a bow on this, because I do want to hear final words of advice from each of our panelists. Okay, the pause was intentional. We don't have any questions that have come in. So just final words of advice. Let's go ahead and we'll start with Charlie. we'll jump to Noelle, Mike, and then Tamara, you can wrap things up for us, and then I'll have a few final words. Charlie, the floor is yours.
Yeah, in a word, my advice would be to not write in a vacuum. Connect with people, iterate your ideas, connect with your advisors, with your friends. As Tamara mentioned, if you can get institutional letters of support by connecting with your professors, colleagues abroad, absolutely do that, and share your draft narratives with those contacts abroad as well, because feasibility matters. And being where you are, you might not have a exact sense of whether your project is feasible as you've conceptualized it in the context that you're hoping to receive a grant to go to. So connect, iterate, and be humble, right? Like put yourself out there, but also be ready to get some constructive feedback, and for those that have a campus process, and having done this for a number of years, the campus process is designed to give you the best foot forward you possibly can. And sometimes to do that, you get some pretty direct criticism, but it's all for you to make you a stronger applicant so that your dreams can be pursued. So that's my advice.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Charlie, and thank you for being here. Noelle, let me turn it over to you. Final words of advice.
Definitely. Take your time with the application. Don't procrastinate like I did. That's probably the best advice I could give you. Do not procrastinate. Take your time. And more than that, make sure that the program you're applying to, you are passionate about it. I almost applied to a country that I was not passionate about just because of the chances of me being accepted. And, you can't apply unless your whole heart is there. So make sure that if it's a research grant, you are completely behind, you stand for what you're researching. If it's ETA to go to a certain country, make sure it's an area that you are 100% passionate about, for sure.
Wonderful advice. And thank you so much for being here, Noelle. And I'd like to turn over to Mike.
Sure, thank you so much. I'll do 3 quick pieces of advice. First, apply. Second, when you get it, throw yourself into the experience, immerse yourself in the experience. I mean, it really is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you want to look back on that knowing that you did everything you could to take advantage. The last thing I'll say about the application, maybe a more strategic thing just to keep in mind. Keep in mind that there are, as Lee talked about earlier in the presentation, thousands of students that are applying for this. And at a point, I mean, we're talking about a lot of good students who are submitting applications, and at a point sitting, and I know, Charlie, you've been on the National Screening Committee, sitting on that committee, they sometimes start to blur together in your head. Figure out not only what makes you and your application unique, but how to present that in a way that's going to stick out and be compelling. I kid you not, make me laugh. Make me cry, like make me connect with your application. And those are really going to be the ones that I think represent who you are, but also strategically stand out from the rest.
Excellent advice, Mike. Thank you so much. Tamara, let's finish off with you and words of advice.
Sure. Well, I would say I concur with everybody's great tips. Just please do your research. It is competitive. If you try and you don't succeed the first time, a lot of times people are alternates. Don't give up. Sometimes you need to apply more than one time. It'll just help you in your life to just pick yourself off the floor. And then just a little hack, if you're a student who has a lot of interests and there are a lot of different countries you'd consider, think about how certain countries, there is a hierarchy, unfortunately, due to many historical reasons, that certain countries get privileged over others. Maybe take a more unconventional path and choose a country that maybe less people may apply to. I know for one, as a faculty member, I applied to a very popular country, and I was told by some Fulbright people like, hey, do you realize that you have a 5% chance of getting this grant versus a country where you have a 25% chance? So I know that sounds really strategic, really go with the country you know the most about and the language skills that you might bring to that, but also realize that this is competitive, but you can do this. And if you don't get it the first time, you're going to get really good feedback, and don't give up. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tamara, and thank you for being here as well. I too have advice. I've been doing this for a few years. We look at the 3 Ps. So regardless of what type of award you're applying for, we're looking at the 3 Ps. That's what I said. We're looking at the project that you're undertaking. How strong is that proposal going to be? We're looking at the place you're going to. Are you making a strong rationale for going to that specific country? Do you have the background, skills, experiences that fit with what that country is looking for? And then we're looking at the person. Again, what are your background, skills, experiences? Why are you choosing to do Fulbright at this stage of your career? What I like to tell people, and that's true, is that your uniqueness, your story is your competitive advantage. So make sure that you're taking time to reflect and talk to other people about who you are and what it is that you want to accomplish. So that's my advice. Just to recap everything that's been said today, again, thank you to our panelists. Fulbright is an opportunity to go to a country that you're interested in, do work that you're passionate about doing, connect with interesting people, doing interesting things in unique places. Fulbright is a values-driven community. Fulbrighters value, they have a commitment to collaboration. They value the exchange of ideas and finding mutual understanding. Fulbrighters are change makers, and we invite you all to become, if you're not already, part of that Fulbright community. So with that, I want to turn it over to Evan to say a few final words. But again, thank you to our panelists, and thank you to the IRC for this opportunity to share a bit about the Fulbright program. Evan, I'm going to hand it back over to you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to join this panel. Lee, for your moderation this evening. Tamara, Mike, Charlie, Noelle, Z, everyone who participated in tonight's program. I very much appreciate it, and sharing your insights to your experiences, as well as providing wonderful recommendations for those interested in the program. Please do visit our website at irckc.org to learn more about other IRC programs and how to potentially join as a member. Tomorrow evening, if you're interested, we will be just having a news and views discussion on the latest happenings from Honduras. And next week, Tuesday, we invite you to participate in our International Film Club program, which will be a discussion of Don't Think I've Forgotten, which looks at the history of rock and roll in Cambodia. All these events and many more are available on our website. We look forward to seeing you again, and thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.